Okay, we are a go. So today we're going to continue on our meandering a little bit. I want to look at a little bit more ClickHouse actually. And I got a little sidetracked by looking at, was this Git? Yeah. And I was actually looking for, static. Because part of what I wanted to chat about today is context and how context matters. And I thought that I would have us take a look a little bit about things that are context free. These guys, Backus-Naur, form, context free representations. And well, very cool and a good starting point for understanding syntax in a maybe easy to understand, but not as powerful a structure as we might want when we get into context sensitive languages, thus the reference to context. And then I was thinking I might show us a little bit about the context-aware semantic structure, which is inside of this MISM paper we wrote a few years back. This is, who is all on this? This is MISM, so Intel Labs, Georgia Tech, MIT. Where am I? Oh, here I am. Yeah. And me, and while I was at University of Pennsylvania, great school. Love those guys. Really awesome. Huge fan. And I wanted to give this example of, these are two programs that I think we got these from, it's like a leet code example, I think. And they are supposedly solving the same problem, which is to read in some input and I think just process the stuff that are digits, something like this. But what's interesting, I think, about these two programs is, while one could argue this one on the left is written in C++, and this one on the right is written in C, that's probably fair. Although, admittedly, you could write both programs in C++, since C++ is arguably mostly a superset of C, or at least at one point it was. Maybe that's not true anymore. But all the stuff that I see here, char pointers, malloc, while loops, printf, putchar, getchar, I think that's all, scanf, that's all available in C++. So you could say that these programs could be written in C++, and they would both compile and run and potentially do the same thing. And what I like about this example is these two code footprints, at least when you consider them from a syntactic perspective, they are pretty different. Quite different, at least in the structure. However, their semantics, one would argue, if you were to define program semantics in a classical way, which is how program synthesis tends to identify program semantics, It's in here somewhere. Yeah. Semantically equivalent. Yeah. So the sort of traditional way to define this for program synthesis is like this, or at least this is my understanding. And this is probably an oversimplification, but approximately this will get us on the same page, I hope. So we define two code fragments, Ci and Cj, to be semantically equivalent if for a given set of inputs, I, so a set of inputs, so it's a single set, but a bunch of different inputs. There's only one set, that's I, that for both Ci and Cj, they produce an identical representative set of outputs, O. So they both take in the same input. They then are executed, and they both produce an identical set of outputs, O. This is sort of the traditional program synthesis way of saying things are semantically equivalent. Therefore, with that definition, you could argue that if these two programs do produce the same output for the same input, these programs are semantically equivalent, even if they are syntactically divergent, which I think most people looking at this could argue they are syntactically quite divergent. And why does this matter? This is also this notion of understanding the context, that if you just look at syntax, it may appear that these things are totally different. But if you understand the context in which this syntax is presented, then you can elide, or you can lift out, that they are potentially semantically equivalent. Thus the whole focus on context again. So that's some good context stuff. And I thought I was going to maybe dive into, oh yes, so Backus-Naur form, cool stuff, but context-sensitive analyses, I think, can be really important for modern-day programming languages. In fact, I think I was reading somewhere that they were arguing that almost all modern-day programming languages are context-sensitive. And the example that I was going to try to show, and by the way, this isn't a knock on BNF. Oftentimes with science, we need a starting point. And so Backus-Naur form, I think, is one of the best ways to start in trying to learn about grammars and reason about syntax, and start to do, like this is a meta syntax notation, because it allows you to express a syntax in a very abbreviated form. Like this is actually a BNF definition for like a US postal address. So we can just quickly dissect this. A postal address is equal to, it has a name part, it has a street address, and it has a zip part. And notice that the stuff that's inside of the angle brackets, these are things that we have to define. These are not literals, these are like templates. So when you see these things and they aren't defined, then you have to define them. When you see them on the left side, it means they're being defined. So these things on the right side don't have definitions, but this thing on the left, the postal address, has been defined now. So then we would have to define all three of these things: the name part, the street address, and the zip part. So the first part is we do the name part, and then at some point we'll do the street address, and at some point we'll do the zip part. Cool? Is it making sense? This is kind of like undergrad computer science stuff. So for those of you who are more senior, this is probably just quick review. Don't worry, I'm not going to spend much time on it. So you get the name part, and the name part they're saying is personal part, last name, op suffix part, end of line. I suspect EOL here is just whatever the end of line thing is, and probably not included out of laziness, but that sometimes is different on different operating systems. So like sometimes it's like slash R, sorry, it's like slash N slash R, something like that. And then others, you just maybe need like just a slash N. I forget, but it's probably a placeholder. So it can have different definitions for different environments, which is cool. That's smart. And then this bar here means or. So you can have this personal part, last name, blah, 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 EOL. Or you could have this personal part and then this name part. And so we haven't defined the personal part, the last name, this stuff, whatever. Let's just assume EOL. It means something. And then in the second part, so it's one or the other, then we would have a personal part or a name part. So these are things we have to define. So we get to the personal part. Oh, sorry. Name part is defined. This is a recursive definition. Yeah, you can do this in BNF. So it does support recursion. So sorry, the name part here is defined recursively. So you can expand on this. So basically, this is, if you think recursion, this is the termination leaf. So it'll terminate on this leaf. It won't continue to recurse. This is the recursive path. So this can recurse based on these definitions, like maybe infinitely. Okay. So we basically have name part fully defined now, is that this will terminate at some point when it goes down this path. So name part's defined, if you understand recursion. So that leaves us with the personal part, last name, and this piece. So personal part, we're going to define as an initial and a dot or a first name. Okay. And that's cool. I guess. Yeah, I think it's like so we can have like middle initials, this kind of thing. Or I guess if you want to have the first name be the initial and then the middle name be the full name. I know some people do that. So it's trying to allow you that kind of flexibility. Or you can expand on this and have it be like a full name. First name's probably not the right name for this, just because you could hack this, I think, to make it the middle name too. Anyway, I'm getting typical Goju pedantic here. So let's keep going. I think you get what's going on here. Then we got the street address. It's the house number, street name, or the apartment number. And they're kind of shortcutting it here because no PO boxes, but we'll forgive them. This is just meant as an example, I think. I think I lifted this just from Wikipedia out of laziness. Don't do that, by the way. Bad Goju. Zip part, the town name, comma, the state code, cool, and zip code, and end of line. Okay, and then the opt suffix part here as stuff. How dare they not include a PhD or MD or JD or I'm just kidding. I don't actually care. Okay, so yeah, we get that. And that's cool because now this basically shows how with just a small set of rules, we defined a grammar. And then you can check this. You can basically follow these rules and parse the code and say, do you follow all these rules? And anything that doesn't, you can say that's not a valid embodiment of this grammar. So that's great. And then we show how this is going to be used in these various semantics reasoner systems. And yeah, I think this is a language where we just implement like while using a fusion of if and else's or something. Okay, but the takeaway here is that, oh, okay. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. The takeaway is BNF, cool stuff, but it is context free. And that can be somewhat limiting as you start to look at stuff that actually has context sensitivity. And an example of that is I was looking at Git, I think. Turn these issues back on. And what was I looking at here? This one. Let's look at this one. Cool. An example of that is the keyword static in C, C++. Now, and this is context sensitive. So the word static here, what this means, if I understand this correctly, is this function resides wholly in this compilation unit, which basically means you can call this function inside of this compilation unit, but that's it. So other compilation units, they're not allowed to call this. And that can be useful to kind of limit the scope and give you access to stuff that you only want to have access in this smaller scope. Like maybe you have global variables that this thing is going to manipulate, but you only want this guy to be able to manipulate it for other functions inside of this compilation unit. So yeah, you could do something like that. And so that's one use of static. And this is another use. Oh, this is perfect. So you've got static here. This is a static function. And this static function, again, can only be called in here. Now this is a static variable. And static variables are slightly different in that it basically means that these are, okay, so this is where it gets, I think, a little tricky since this is in a C file. Yep. I believe we'll have to double check the definition. So don't totally trust me here, but I think that it's that this will, I think that's like it resides within this file, and I think that it may not be able to be used. It will essentially create a single instance of it. I think that that's what it is. We'll have to double check this, but it's different than this static function in that you can do this like in header files, and it basically denotes that you are like a global variable. So then when you have multiple inclusions of this static variable, that it won't have multiply defined symbols. It won't try to define this thing multiple times. It'll say, no, there's only one instance of it. And that can be really useful when you're dealing with things like cyclic include dependencies, where you've got to deal with stuff that most people that don't code in C, C++, they don't have to deal with. Like this is a bit painful, I think. Oh, okay, and there's more statics. So let's continue to see if we see some other different uses of statics. This is another static struct. I'm really hoping you have a static variable inside one of these functions, because that has even different behavior. And I'm pretty sure I know what that one is exactly. Wow, a lot of statics. basically, yeah, only accessing, I think, within this function. Oh, was that one? Found one. Found one. Awesome. Cool. This is actually why I wanted to look at static. Okay. So we'll look at this one, and then we'll kind of wrap up our static analysis. So what statics mean for for variable declarations inside of functions is that this variable will persist. It will exist essentially globally, but it has limited scope. So you can think of this as like a global variable, but its scope is only accessible inside of this do merge function. Unless, of course, you return it as some parameter or something, which you could, and then somebody else could access that. But that's generally not like a super good idea, because if you made it a static, and keep in mind, this is a general rule. There are cases where you would break this, like if you're trying to return singletons that are like sentinels or something. That's people do that. I've done that. Uh, but oftentimes it's like in this particular case, what it looks like to me is that this is going to be probably a mutex. And then this code can be executed by multiple threads simultaneously. And you want to ensure essentially that only one of them can perform a critical section that's going to work on shared memory. And so you have this lock. And then if we did a search on this lock, which, what the heck? Let's do it. We'll see that, yeah, repo hold locked index. That is not messing with the lock. This is messing with the lock. Well, okay, so here's where our lock is defined as a static. By the way, it only gets defined once. And then after, so it's only on the initial call of this function that this initialization of this variable will happen. All subsequent calls will keep its former state, which is very important to understand. So our lock is not messed with until that call, this call. Okay, so it looks like there's a bunch of, there we go. Okay, yeah, so the reason why I was scrolling is I noticed these rollback locks, which is cool, but I wasn't seeing any code that was actually locking the lock, which makes me think that I hadn't gotten there yet, because rolling a lock back, that's probably like some prior state or something that you're trying to use as a checkpoint or something of that nature. We'd have to look at this more closely to understand. But in order to do that, somebody would have to actually lock this. And I hadn't seen that, but I see that here. I think this is where it would happen, is this right locked index. And so you're passing the address of this lock. You're trying to do this commit lock or something. And so I think that this is where you're actually trying to manipulate the lock, trying to commit something, I'm guessing. Actually, let's see here. Let's reverse that. So okay. Well, it would take us a little while to deeply understand what this is doing, but the higher order bit of this is just that when you have static variables inside of functions, it creates a variable that persists for the duration of the program, but its scope is limited inside of the function that it's constructed in. And why am I explaining all of this? Well, if we go back to this point over here on context matters, the context in which you use the word static has very different meanings in C and C++. You can use it for these local functions. You can use it for variables inside of functions. You can use it for things that are outside. It uses gotos. I can tell that's a goto just because that's the label. So if we do a search on this, we'll see a goto. No, there it is. Yeah. Okay. No judgment. This was actually a kind of a valid way to do cleanup back in the day for C code. So yeah. And while we're here, just one more for kicks and giggles, in case some of you are looking at this wondering like why you do this not. This not is basically the higher order explanation is usually used in cases where you have some operation and it's going to return some value that is going to be an integer, but you want to essentially convert it into a Boolean where any non-zero value is going to be true and any zero value will be false. So if it's 0, what you do is you not it, and then that makes it true. And then you not it again, and that turns it to false. But now it's a Boolean. If it is a non-zero value, let's say it's like -5, you not it, it turns it into 0. You not it again, it turns it into true. Or sorry, when the negative, what did I say, -5? -5, you not it, it turns it into false, which is 0 in this case for C++, I believe. And I think that that's part of the definition in the language. I think that that's what it says, is false is 0 and true is any non-zero value, something like that. So anyway, -5 knotted that's non-zero. So it would turn it to 0 and now it's false. And then you knot it again and now it's true. And then you can do that for any non-zero number. So that's basically what that guy's doing, if I understand it correctly. Wow. Okay. There are multiple jump points in this. Okay. Not judging. Not judging. That can be. I'm like a little curious now. This is what happens when. Find fast. I thought if I do like a shift. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is the one I was looking at, and I'm just shift entering. And then I see the goto on this. Whoa, man. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's not go too far down other rabbit holes here. Let's stick to these huge rabbit holes we've got. Okay, so now we understand static has various meanings, and so context matters. And that's the overarching theme. And I also want to talk about how I think context also matters for life in general. I think that one of the things I'm really keen on is that a lot of things in life are very nuanced. And so, while most of these rules or guidelines, virtues, are things we should generally do, it's not always the case that we should do these. There are likely going to be corner cases where, yeah, we don't need to do that one in this case. Like, for example, I haven't done exercise today. I don't think. I really would like to, but I'm a bit busy today, so I may not be able to. And so, yeah, the context matters. Another one is compare yourself to yesterday's you. I think in general, this is a really good thing, but there are some times where we may need to do a comparison to other people or to other things. Like when I'm writing research papers and we're evaluating our systems against other systems, we're comparing against them. And that can be, yeah, totally useful in those cases because people may want to see this quantitative analysis. And in fact, in this MISM paper, I think if we go to the experimental section, you'll see. Yeah, I kind of like this picture. This is a good. I don't think I created this picture. I think somebody else did, but I like this one. Yeah, I think maybe Stanley and Funko created this one. It's pretty good. I think they did a nice job. Uh, so for comparing to others, yeah, here we go. So we're comparing I think this is like similarity analysis, semantic similarity analysis to some of these existing systems. So we've got MISM as like the last three here, graph neural network, GNN, RNN, recurrent neural network, BOF is like a bag of features, I think. And then the other ones over here, these are all different systems. So this is like code to vec, code to sec, this is code to sequence, NCC, neural code comprehension, I think. Neural code comprehension without inst to vec, aroma dot product, aroma cosine similarity, a sequence RNN, and a sequence transformer. So this is a good example of while in general it's a good idea to focus on you to you, there are times where you've got to compare to others, especially if you're doing like peer-reviewed science stuff. So yeah, context matters. And I feel like one of the things that I kind of see in the world today is there's a little bit of this hard line. This is how you do this. You do it this way, and it's always this way. And I'm not so sure about that. I think sometimes that makes sense, but I think that there are usually exceptions. And yeah, so I wanted to share this because I wanted to make sure that as we're going through these virtues or these things, and I'm giving guidance on, you should generally not use go-tos. I think that's probably a pretty good rule. It doesn't mean that code that has go-tos is just totally broken and it's terrible, right? I mean, look, this is Git. We're looking at Git right now, which probably everyone that's watching this channel, I suspect, or a large percentage, if you're a coder, you're probably using Git. And Git uses go-tos. So does this mean Git's garbage? No. It just means that when they were writing Git, there were certain practices that were being used during that time in C, and oftentimes it was like cleanup stuff or exit conditions where you want to have, they didn't have objects that had destructors, right? This is like one of the big benefits of objects, scoped objects, is that when they exit a function, their destructor gets invoked, and then you can do cleanup inside of those destructors. So they didn't have that. And so how do you deal with the cleanup? Well, you usually do the go-tos, right? That's what it's doing. Yeah. So see, like, notice how this is like memory stuff. So release this this buffer, roll back this lock thing. Just make sure you don't leave that thing locked. That would be deadlock coming up. Free this list, free this other list. Yeah. So Could you do it maybe in a better way today? Sure. But it wasn't written today. So the point is that understand the context. Let's be maybe less slow to be super judgy and still look at things with a critical eye, but understand that the context of these things can have a direct bearing on how they came to be, I think. And I kind of like that this piece dovetails nicely with, sometimes I'm like a little bit too quick to judge, and I need to be better at that. This is actually that I was just talking with the Merle leads about this. Is I like to believe that I'm at least mildly introspective, and if I'm gonna sit here and maybe preach these things, many of these I really try to do, I think I should, one of these is be introspective, I think. Yeah, here we go. Be introspective. So if we're introspective, then that means we probably are aware of our strengths and our weaknesses. This is one of the things that I've got to work on. I can be a bit too judgy on things and not give people like the full fair shake that they deserve. And I'm working on this. So, and the reason why I think this is interesting sharing this is oftentimes this is the piece that I need to work on, is that if I'm being a little bit too quick to judge, it's because maybe in my head I'm thinking, oh, it's so obvious, like don't use go-tos, right? It's just bad, which is probably true in the general case. But now if you take the context of when this code was written, no, I think it's totally fine. So this is the part where I'm trying to like slow it down a little bit, that I can have the idea of this is generally what I should apply, but then also understand that, oh, in this specific context, that actually doesn't make sense. So just kind of weak claiming it, not being so quick to strong claim things. So cool. I feel happy that we got through a little bit of this context stuff. So a couple other quick things I want to mention, and then maybe we really will get to Sick Boy, but I'm probably still going to do that as a separate video, I think. We'll see. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot, is I recently got invited to give a talk at this event, this Fastcode thing. I think that this, as they were telling me, this was created by Charles Leeserson, Professor Leeserson at MIT. And I think that this is mostly about performance-related things in computer science and how performance matters, and ensuring that different academic institutes, or in some cases, I think even companies, I think they have a couple companies, it's a lot of academic talks, but I thought I saw like, yeah, so there's Google. I thought I saw somebody else. Or maybe I'm just imagining this. Yeah, there's Tim Davis. I think he's one of the co-creators of GraphLabs. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So we were looking at that. That's the code that Mentor is not happy about with that one null access. So very smart guy. I've never actually worked directly with Professor Davis, but I've heard that he's really special. So that's cool. And it's kind of interesting because I was looking at this list and there's a few people on it that are like my mentors, So this guy is one of my personal mentors. Just really learned so much from him. Been working with him and his mentorship for the last 4 years, I think. And then this guy, he's another one of my super mentors. Yeah, I think he's been doing some blockchain stuff. I mean, Morris just whatever Morris wants to work on, he's just such a special one-off. He's incredible guy. He's one of those few people I think that it's like he could literally be working on 20 different topics and be one of the world's foremost experts in all 20 of them simultaneously. It's pretty scary. But one of the things on this list was from Morris. It was something Morris taught me. And I'm going to find it. Because there's probably actually several. There's one I specifically remember. We were in Aspen together at a conference doing like transactional memory, and we were on a walk, and I was asking him for advice on how to do research, and he said, always be researching at least 2 different things. Here we go. This was like directly from Professor Hurley. Dr. Morris. He gave me this advice. This is like 2000. This is a long time ago, 2009 or something. And he was saying, don't just do research in transactional memory, Justin. This is before my Goju days. And make sure that you do multiple things, at least 2. And he said the key thing is that because it's research, we don't know how it's going to pan out. And so you should hedge your bets. So if you're working on one thing and it doesn't work out, you've got the second thing. And this is something I've kind of lived by. And in fact, if you look at the 4 domains of machine programming, I've really tried to focus on all 4 of those. I don't know that I like focus on them like equally, but I think I definitely focus on them. And those give me different backup plans, different things. And yeah, so really good advice. Anyway, I was mentioning this Fastcode thing because I think I'll be giving, I think Matson and I are probably going to work on what we decide to present together. By the way, I believe I've also met Guy. This guy, that one's just for you, Taylor. Guy is also a really incredible researcher. I mean, a lot of the people, I'm actually pretty flattered, to be honest, that I'm being asked to talk at this place. Like, geez, bar's pretty high. Hope I don't bomb. Yeah, like so many mentors on there. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, if any of you that are using Mentor or you're really interested in machine programming and there's something very specific, oh, Kathy, you like, wow, she's superhero. Actually was on a panel with her once. Interestingly enough, I was on a panel with Kathy, Saman, somebody else. It was another like superhero, like at the level of Kathy. But I can't remember now. This is kind of embarrassing. Anyway, back to my point about this Fastcode. If any of you are using Mentor and you're really curious, this has to be about optimizations, though, just to be clear. They want me to talk about why is it so fast? And what do you do to make it so fast? And there's a lot of stuff that we do to make it fast. Some of the stuff that we can talk about, some of it we can't. So if you are using Mentor and you're really interested on like, how does it do inference so fast? Like I add a new repo and this thing just cruises. I saw the demo at or like the 5 million lines of inference in 5 minutes. I was to do that. Or I saw the Monty demo with C to Rust, and it took a minute and a half. Can you explain that? I'll definitely add it to my list. On top of that, if there are specific things that you're interested in that you'd like me to discuss, because I'll make the slides available, I suspect. Probably like some, maybe the whole, oh yeah, cool. I think maybe the whole video. Let's see here. Yeah, there's Simon. Yeah, I think I've seen him talk about this build it stuff before. Cool. Yeah, so it looks like I'll probably allow them to post it. So if there's anything about Mentor or just general machine programming stuff, like how can we create different intermediate representations that are going to be super fast, or what are systems level optimizations for doing analysis of code, or smart things for code generation, semantics reasoning. There's like the meta code reasoners. Meta reasoning, I think, is actually one of the topics I'm probably super interested in. But Holler, I don't think I've given a date on when we'll talk, but I think I said something like July or later. So we've got some time, and there's so many things to talk about that I don't know. So feel free to email me, Goju at merly.ai, or Goju at stanford.edu, and I'll, or you can just drop a comment in the YouTube, and then I will add it to the list. No promises, because if it's like a top secret thing, obviously I can't talk about that. And then it may be that we have too much content, but if it's something we can fit in, I'll definitely add it. Cool. Okay, I want to talk just a couple more things. And since we're talking about various companies and games, I thought I'd take a moment to talk about Trihydro. And this is partially inspired because I noticed that one of the folks that we're working with over at Trihydro, one of their vice presidents, Shane Zump, he left a comment on one of the other episodes that we had. And then it made me think, oh, we haven't actually highlighted Trihydro. And we should, because we've been working with Trihydro for, I think, almost since the beginning. So like almost 3 years, Trihydro has been using Mentor. So let's check them out a little bit. I was on their website earlier and I saw some fun stuff. So this is Trihydro. They are based in Laramie, Wyoming. And they're an engineering and environmental consulting firm started by a geologist and a chemist with a vision and a passion for developing sustainable solutions. That's cool. In the early years, Trihydro was known and named for its technical expertise in geology, chemistry, and engineering. Since that time, we've advanced purposefully in environmental science, engineering technology, and regulatory compliance to help our clients achieve their business objectives. Today, we have more employees and more offices, and we continue to push ourselves to provide effective, responsive, and safe solutions around the globe. Our company culture is one of integrity, honesty, fairness, and trust, and these values have made us one of the nation's top engineering and environmental firms. as we continue to grow, we won't lose sight of doing business our way, the way our employees, partners, and clients deserve. And I can tell you that in working with them for the last 3 years, they are all that. They have really good integrity. They're really great to work with. They do. I was looking at this. They have this Code of the West. They do have a high bar, and uh, they'll definitely let us know if we are kind of dropping the ball. In fact, I got, I don't want to say I got yelled at, because I don't know that I got yelled at, but I definitely was notified that one of our releases didn't roll out to one of the services we were hosting for them in a seamless way. And that's good, right? I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate that they have so much trust in us that they'll tell us openly, hey, Goju, like, you guys are kind of dropping the ball here. Like, we expect you to, we pay you money to host this thing for us, and your thing's not doing what it's supposed to be. And truthfully, we should be functioning in like a 5 nines, 6 9s type of thing. So we got on that and we fixed that. But I want to share that they definitely have integrity, honesty. They're very fair, and we've built like a lot of trust. I also want to share that they actually write really good code, which we've worked with. I'm not going to say anything bad here, because that's one of my rules, or specifically about, or I'm trying not to. Yeah. Sometimes the last meandering, when I was looking at those ifs, I may have gotten a little ornery, but I want to share that when we first started looking at their code, we were really impressed. And keep in mind, we're working with some of the best software engineering teams in the world. I don't know if I can mention their names, but if you go to the Merly website, you can see some of the partners that we have, and there's going to be some announcements on some of the folks that are integrating our stuff across very large teams for these like Fortune 100 companies, which is a tighter subset than like Fortune 500, right? It's like this is a tighter group of companies. So we're working with many of these best-in-class software development companies, and when we started working with TriHydro, these guys out of Laramie, Wyoming, I don't know that we had expectations. I mean, we like them. We think they're awesome, but I don't know that we expected to come in and be like, wow, your code is as good as Google's. And their code is really good. It was very impressive. Unfortunately, this is all proprietary stuff, so we can't show it. But yeah, definitely good. If this is stuff that you're interested in, or the company that you work at is interested in these spaces, I almost wish I could show you the mentor scores for some of their repos. It's quite good. It's on par with things like Falcor DB or Git or ClickHouse. It's outstanding, especially their C# code, I think, is because they do a lot of, I think, .NET stuff. It's very good. So anyway, part of their code of conduct, which I was reading earlier and I absolutely love, is they've got this, and this is from James Owen, this cowboy ethics. And it just made me giggle because, like, this is such a Wyoming thing to do. Okay, guys, it's great. So let's look at these. Live each day with courage. Take pride in your work. always finish what you start. Man, I love these. I'm going to take a look at my list and see what we're missing here. Cause yeah, like always finish what you start. Boy, the times I've had to have conversations with people about this, it's crazy because sometimes it's the smallest stuff that's like the most important. Like this one, it probably doesn't seem like this is so crazy. Like everybody knows this, everybody does this. Yeah, well, you might be surprised, and so this is why it's on the list. Is it's like you got to show up. It doesn't matter how awesome you are and how gifted you are and how much you know. If you don't show up when you need to, things are probably not going to go well. And so this one's so obvious, I think. You just always finish what you start. But yeah, I also like this do what has to be done. There's, for those of you that might be aspiring to potentially do your own startup or go in your own path. First, I want to say that I think that that's awesome. And, if you've spent a reasonable amount of time thinking about it and you're compelled that this is the right thing for you, and, it's not something you're doing whimsically, then I would encourage you to lean in. This is something that I've done, and I don't know that I would live a different way. Although I do want to qualify this and say, just these really big things, I would encourage you to make sure you have deep contemplation before you dive in. That it's not just like, okay, I'm going to go do a PhD, and you spend 5 minutes on it, and then you get 6 months into it, and you're like, I wish I would have thought about this more because this is just a terrible idea. So try not to do that. That would be my rough, high-level advice. But if you decide to do these things, like you do a startup, you do a PhD, you do whatever your career is, one of the things I find that some people struggle with is they get this idea of things being so glamorous. Like you have this idea that, oh, you're going to be doing your PhD research and you're going to be surrounded by all these brilliant people in the lab, and you guys will have coffee together and pontificate in this and sit around and read each other's research papers and pat each other on the back as you're all getting accepted to tier 1 conferences and all become professors at the best universities and blah, blah, blah. And those things may happen. But along the way, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen that's not going to be like that. It's going to be stuff like you have to answer emails. You end up teaching classes and your students are getting frustrated because they got a bad grade. You're going to teach, I'm sticking with the academic stuff just because we're talking about this academic PhD thing, but you're going to teach a class and your TA or your CA is just going to be like, I'm just not going to come for 2 weeks. Or they're not going to do their job. Or you're going to have students that are just being unreasonable. Or the university is going to tell you have to teach a different class that you don't want to. Like there's going to be life things that happen that are going to throw you curveballs, and it's not always going to be puppy dogs and rainbows. And the sooner you can get comfortable with this idea of you got to do what you got to do. Like, for example, I take the trash out at Merle. I restock the fridge. I do the editing for the videos. I get help on all of these things. So I don't do these all myself. But the point is, like, there's no job that's below me. And I think that's really good. I think that's a good philosophy to have, because one, I think it humanizes you. So even if you end up being the big boss, I think that my advice is try to avoid being the person that's like in the ivory tower that is just issuing out orders and not actually on the ground floor, doing things like writing code or like one of the things I joke about is I'm the most serious beta tester for Merly. And I think that going into these big things, these big events, that you may have, I don't want to say delusions of grandeur, but you may have certain ideological views of how it's going to work. Just be careful that you don't sort of over dramatize. You don't create too much hyperbole on how amazing this is going to be. And all the things that I've done in my life that I think are the things that people say back to me as, wow, you did this. All of those things, they have been things that are hard. And they've required me to do things like take out the trash and be the beta tester and edit sentences that other people could do, or add the right citations, or do the lit review, the stuff that you kind of feel like, shouldn't somebody else do this? Like, if you really want to do great stuff, you've got to, sorry, my phone's going off here. I gotta just shut this down. There we go. Okay. So if you want to do these incredible things, I think you should go in with the expectation that there's going to be stuff in there that you're not going to love, but it's going to be essential that you do it anyway because it's necessary. So I love this one. Okay. Be tough but fair. I live by this. I try really hard to be fair. I think there's no question that people definitely think that I'm very tough, especially at the university and at the company and stuff. But hopefully they also think that I'm fair. That's at least my hope. When you make a promise, keep it. Yeah, absolutely. And what's great too is Trihydro, I think, follows all of these. Like, just no question. They are living this ethos. Ride for the brand. I don't know that I know what this one means. Okay, so we'll skip it. Talk less, say more. I definitely struggle with this one. I feel like I'm saying stuff, but I'm talking quite a bit. I'm going to work on this. This is on my list of stuff. Remember that some things aren't for sale. Yes. 1,000% yes. A million, bazillion, gazillion times yes. This blows my mind, I think. I'm breaking the rule above it here, thinking about all the things I want to say. But boy, that reminds me too of this thing about, where was it? This one. Don't focus solely on the material. Yep. And it's fascinating because I think that people can start out and have all the right intentions and then start to get a small amount of success. This is where I think it really starts to creep in. At least this is what I've seen. They can start off and they be on the right charter, and then they start to get a small amount of success. And then suddenly they start to move in a direction where it's almost like they have lost their way, because there's this notion of being able to make money. And then greed can set in. And yeah, it's kind of makes me sad a little bit. But more than anything, I think it's a good reminder of ethics. I think need to always come before money, because I think that's where things start to go really wrong, is when money comes before ethics, and then you start going down the path that some of these corporate guys are going, that I don't know, it's not the path for me. I'm going to be less judgy, or I'm going to try. Okay, know where to draw the line. That's cool. I would like to talk to them about what that actually means. Leave it better than you found it. Yeah, I love that. I'm a big, I mean, that's actually why I was looking at some of that other, like the ClickHouse code, and why I go so on the, like the deep end on these things is I look at this stuff and I think we can make this better, right? And it's not like a sign of disrespect, like we're doing something that they couldn't do, and they're silly for not doing this the right way the first time. It's not that at all. It's more just that things are iterative. You know, it's this whole notion of the Archimedean spiral, is you can't always get it right on the first pass. And so like this is an example of something that we could leave this better than when we found it. And maybe what we'll do is we'll rewrite this, and we'll like send the code to ClickHouse, that if they want to use the revised, like we'll do a similar thing to like what we did for the code back in 2011, that I think they actually went and fixed, because I suspect they're going to realize that they did this here and they're going to want a similar fix. This one's a little bit more complicated because of these various function calls. We're going to have function pointers, and it's going to be a variable argument list. There's some work to do, but we can get there. It's nothing that we haven't done before. Cool. So we've got that. And then I also wanted to go to their software. Do I just go? Oh, view all software. Yeah. So with their software, yeah, they have these things. Leak Tracker Pro helps oil and gas operators. That's cool. Inflection, environmental data management system, allowing users to upload, validate, and report on environmental data. I love it. I also really like, one thing that I really like about some of the companies that we work with is I really like, there's another company we're getting ready to work with, and I don't think I'm allowed to say their name, but they're like another Fortune 100 company, but they're really big into energy conservation and being very just cognizant about environmental impact. And I like that. I like, and again, I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm also not judging. I think that they're hard decisions and things that we've got to do constantly. But if there's things that we can do to try to leave things better than when we showed up, I think that we should strive to do that, when it makes sense. So I love that with Trihydro. As you can kind of see that this is stuff that they're striving for. Like they just really kind of want to understand this is the world we live in, with various things that are going on in the world, like these oil and gas companies. But there's things that we can do to help ensure that they stay compliant and they stay efficient, and we're properly tracking the data. It's cool stuff, I think. It's not so like hardline idealistic, and it's more just like, this is the state of the universe. Let's try to make things better in those parameters. Inflection is Trihydro's environmental data management system, allowing users to upload, validate, and report on environmental data, including leachate, groundwater, surface water, stormwater, and soil samples. I'm probably saying this wrong. Gain visibility into project activity data and other stuff. Cool. Querying stuff. FenceLine Pro. This is, oh, I can click on this, huh? FenceLine Pro. So I know a little bit about this one. good stuff. Manage, analyze, and report fence line monitoring data with Fence Line Pro, a software solution built to help facilities comply with fence line monitoring requirements. And I can tell you that their Fence Line Pro code is pretty good. Good stuff. So anyway, I think we've spent some time looking at this. This is awesome. Love these Trihydro guys, and we'll talk more about them later. Maybe at some point we can show some of the stuff that Mentor has found and observed with Trihydro's software, so you can kind of see what it looks like with real world production quality code. But we'll talk with the Trihydro folks before we cross that bridge. And then last but not least, I wanted to have a quick tech highlight on these things. These are actually what's been in my ear. And before I had to turn my phone off, I was listening to my just white noise. And these, I got a recommendation from Flossie Carter, one of my guys that does YouTube tech reviews. And by the way, I'm not in any way sponsored or affiliated with these Shock. You can see I just bought them. And boy, oh boy, are these incredible. And my bar is really high. So this is open ear. So basically you can hear everything, which is so great when you listen to stuff like I do, but you still want to hear the external stuff like FedEx arriving or the phone ringing or any of those things. But the sound quality is fantastic. It's almost doesn't even make sense how good. I mean, especially when you consider that it's open, right? Because it's not sealed like the typical ones are. Like these guys, these like DV-let, whatever, which are great. They're really, really good, but totally isolated in the sense that you kind of can't hear the rest of the world. And when you do activities with these other guys, like for example, if you go running, it's just bouncing the whole time, and it can be pretty annoying. Whereas these guys, you basically don't get any of that. So I could go on and on for hours, but I'm gonna adjourn on this. But I wanted to share that if this is something that you're into, if you're into audio stuff, and you think that having a pair of open ear headphones is the way to go, strong recommend on these Shocks Open Fit 2. So with that, folks, thanks so much, and we'll be back next time.